Hello Apartment Therapy. This is my 472 square foot one bedroom apartment in SoHo. So when you first walk in, you are entering into my kitchen, which opens into my living room area. I have a 20 square foot bathroom, which used to be kind of like the biggest eyesore in my apartment, but now is one of my favorite things. And then I have my bedroom tucked against the back. This is actually my favorite time of day for light in my apartment. It's super natural, it's very splashy. It kind of just like ripples through these big windows, which I love. And that was one of the things I loved about this apartment when I first came to view it more than 7 years ago. So this table I actually use for both prep, when this isn't enough space for me, but also dining. There's a lot of little luxuries that you live in New York and you come to appreciate just so much more. One of those is just a dishwasher, period. I've gone years and years without a dishwasher in New York. So moving into this apartment where I not only had a dishwasher, but a double drawer dishwasher was truly a game changer for me. It's just kind of meant that I never really have dirty dishes in the sink because I can always sort of like cycle through my dishes. And that just feels so nice. From the start, I knew in this space I wanted something counter height. One of the things I felt like I had to solve for was the fact that counter height tables are kind of pretty narrow. I also was at a point where I was working from home more and more and more, and so I kind of just needed a little more space to spread out. Before I even gave myself permission to look for a custom option, I think I had that misconception that maybe a custom order would just be so expensive and maybe just like a little, excessive by nature. But I actually found this company called What We Make they're based out of Illinois. I wanted to be able to customize sort of like the depth and the height and the length of it. And I worked with their team. They were so awesome. I sent them pictures, I sent them measurements, I sent them like the dimensions of the chairs. So that is where I keep all of my office supplies. I have like my laptop charger, notebooks, pens, you name it, that's my gear. I tuck it all away after work. And then you would know none the wiser that this was my office for the day. I love to host. I grew up in a household where every holiday was at our house. So I think like that impulse to host or like bring people together is just kind of like in the blood. And having a small apartment, I didn't want that to stop me, So that's where a lot of, I think like the thinking around this space was definitely made for me to be comfortable. I wanted to be able to comfortable and like relax and just feel truly just at home. But I also wanted it to be a space where I could bring people in just as easily. I really wanted to create a space that remained open for standing room, but also had plenty of seating for when people wanted to sort of like gather around. It wasn't until I decided to move my couch up against these two windows, I even had the opportunity to bring in additional seating. In doing this, I feel like I kind of created a more open space to my kitchen too, that inherently feels social also to kind of have like the couch angled toward the table. But I also I created space to have these chairs. This ottoman is actually like a trifold mattress pad. My sister lived with me the first summer I lived in this apartment. She was interning in New York, and this is more or less where she slept, was on this mattress pad. And I kind of thought about putting it into a storage unit, but then I just felt like that really defeated the purpose of like having another like sleeping option for house guests. So what I ultimately ended up doing was I took the packaging or like the case for the mattress pad to a seamstress, and I had gotten this material from like the garment district, and then she was able to use that casing as a form to create what this ottoman, which is essentially like my trifold mattress pad hidden in plain sight. A furniture piece without storage, why bother? So for me, I needed to have something where I could hide away. Maybe some of those things I didn't want on display. So like this little cabinet right here is my home gym. I have my dresser in my living room. It doesn't bother me at all. It works, but it fit in the space close to perfectly. I actually bought this dresser as a set with the nightstand in my bedroom. Again, I was always trying to find like that connective tissue between like different rooms. I have this color painted throughout my entire apartment with the exception of the bathroom. And that also became important for me too, because It's that cohesion that I really feel like brings the whole apartment together. It's actually Farrow & Dimity. It's a red toned taupe. Taupe doesn't sound like the sexiest color like by any means, but like the red tone piece I really loved because I was already sort of gravitating toward browns or like dusty roses. I had like the red brick. So that was one of the samples that I brought home, and it immediately just felt like it was the right move for the space. I've become more of a minimalist with, I don't know if it's maturity or if it's age, but even just like a minimalist in the way that I think like I regard my home. I don't like a ton of just stuff, but also just in the sense that I regard my wardrobe. I used to really hate the idea of like outfit repeating. I don't know like where that came from or whatever, but I always wanted to be like wearing something different, have a new outfit. I didn't like to wear the same thing twice around other people. Now I think outfit repeating is like the chicest thing that I could ever do, but it's kind of like the same idea of how I feel about like this apartment. It's kind of like everything in here I've brought in and I love, and I have to be proud for it to be just like sitting out in the open. There was like a femininity that I wanted to bring in here. I feel like that came through in shapes, but it also came through in kind of like a luxe feeling. I felt like I could lean into something like this that felt maybe like a little more luxe than like what I was leaning into kind of like in other areas of the apartment. So when I first moved in, I actually had the bed angled differently to where it was perpendicular to how it is now. But when I shifted the bed, like the ironic thing is that I created space for a nightstand. I actually created so much additional space in like losing that like small chunk on the other side of my bed. But the nightstand like definitely doubles as like an extension of like my dresser. So again, just like having a really storage forward option. I also feel really fortunate that I have a built-in closet and floor to ceiling storage on this side of my bedroom. Which is so awesome. Like I keep like my suitcases up there. I'm like I said, I'm just constantly trying to find different storage solutions. So finding baskets that I felt like were presentable was important for me. But within the bins are like my, 6 pairs of Birkenstocks. When I first saw the apartment, the bathroom was the one true quirk. It reminded me of like maybe like 80s, 70s, like disco times. Like it looked like parties were had. The sink in the shower was totally quirky and weird, right? The black bathroom was totally quirky and weird. But I was like, you know what, big picture, this is a great apartment, great location. I'll figure it out over time, like I'll renovate. But to structurally move the sink out from the shower, I would actually have to just like increase the size of the bathroom because there was basically nowhere else for the plumbing to go. So what I wanted to do was sort of just like find a way to make the sink just like work better for me. Now it's like a triangular one, which means that it doesn't really come out from that corner as much. And yes, I kept the black look, but I changed everything about it. So what you have here are sort of like rectangular styled vertically tiles with like a really slate gray grout, right? To kind of like create like a more seamless look. I brought in gold finishes. So you see that in kind of like the lighting and also the hardware. Like I said, when I first kind of like saw this apartment, I knew this was the one quirk, the sink in the shower. And my mind was like, this has to be the first thing to go. Now, after I've made so many changes to the apartment, it's the last original thing standing. This is actually my first home or apartment living by myself. So adjusting to that, which is kind of like a big deal, like how to live alone, how to feel great being alone also, but also just being able to fully create a space for myself too. For me, it's like kind of like emotionally, like somewhere where I want to be is kind of like this like newer concept that I love, but it's also a place where like I want others to be with me too. So to me, a healthy home is just first and foremost, just finding a way to be completely comfortable. So for me, that was like having a lot of like lounge opportunities. Having a smaller space, I find so much like peace in having a tidy space too. So a ritual for me actually is like every night before I go to bed is just cleaning, or at least like surface cleaning, just getting stuff off the surfaces so that when I wake up, it does feel just as it was meant to be. It's very relaxing too as like a ritual. I've grown up and learned to be an adult in New York City just by virtue of me having been here for 12 years, but I really kind of like hit my stride like in this home, this place, which is also really special to me.